Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni moli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored and humbled that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Tell your kids, teachers, tell the librarians. And also, please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Himalaya, Ghana, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Derek Fisher. He is here to celebrate his middle grade novel, Alicia Connected. Before we invite Derek into the studio to let us know how Alicia and our kids are going to keep themselves safe while they're connected to the internet, we want to invite all the authors listening to the show to take a very safe trip to readingwithyourkids.com. When you arrive there, please click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. That way you can learn how you can be a guest here on the podcast and in a long-form conversation like Derek's about to do. Let us know all about your book, the characters, the inspiration. Let us know about you, your brand, what we can expect from you. You can also learn about our Certified Great Read program. This is a program that's helped many, many authors. It's a great way to let parents know that your book deserves a place on their family library. You can also find out about our monthly promotion program. We are so excited about this program. The monthly promotion program will celebrate your books with commercials on the podcast, messages to our 100,000 plus social media followers, display your book in our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards, and also have your book with us live at whatever event we happen to be participating in a given month. For example, in September of 2022, we'll be at the PTO Today Expo in St. Louis, Missouri, where thousands of educators and parents, involved parents, are going to be. They'll get a chance to see your book, hold your book, ask me questions about your book. And in October of 2022, we'll be out in Costa Mesa, California, at the Orange County Children's Book Festival, the largest children's book festival in North America. Find out all about this and more at readingwithyourkids.com. Join us right now from right outside of Philadelphia. Our guest today is here to celebrate his middle grade novel. It's called Alicia Connected. Please welcome to the show, Derek Fisher. Hey, Derek, how are you?
Hi, Jed. How you doing? Hi, everybody.
I'm really great, and I'm really excited that you're here. This is, I think, going to be a very valuable discussion for a lot of the parents and teachers that are listening. Tell us in a nutshell what story we're going to experience when we read Alicia Connected, please.
So Alicia Connected is a book about a young girl who is getting introduced to technology. And so there's actually 3 books in the series. The first one is about her getting her first device and her parents working with her to try to help her understand the different things that she needs to consider when she's using a device and when she's getting online. And the additional books in that series kind of follow along that same type of theme where, you know, she's learning the ins and outs of technology. She learns a lot of lessons the hard way, not necessarily her specifically, but also some of her friends in the story may learn some lessons along the way regarding things like cyberbullying, getting scammed online, how to be able to really detox from devices as well. That's a theme in the third book. So there's a lot of things that we see related to, you know, children having this exposure to devices and how they need to be aware of the different things that are out there on not just with with the devices themselves, but online. And honestly, a lot of this stuff that we talk about in the book, it's not just specific to children. I mean, adults can learn a lot from it as well. So hopefully, you know, they'll spend some time reading it with their children.
Now, before I dig deep into the meat of this, and again, I think this is really, really important. Can you give us a little bit about your background? You're not just, imagining this stuff. You have some expertise in the field.
Yeah, so I've been in engineering for going on 30 years. I know I look like I'm 16, but I've been in engineering for almost 30 years. I've been in hardware, I've been in software, and eventually got into security about 10 years ago. So the security field is very large. There's a lot of different parts about security that are interesting. But one of the things that I've learned along the way is I think being able to help others understand security and help them understand the different risks and threats that are out there, make my job easier, make other people's job easier that are in this industry. Because the more people understand and know about security, the easier it is for us for people in my field to be able to protect different parts of technology. So I do work as I'm the head of product security at a financial technology company. I run a team of engineers and architects that work to secure software. I also teach at Temple University. I teach cybersecurity there. And I've written not just children's books, but I've also have a technology book that's coming out from Manning soon as well. So yeah, I've been kind of around the block. I've seen this, breathed it, lived it for quite some time now.
This is such an important topic, and we've touched on it in a number of different ways. And I'm really happy that you're here, because I think that this is probably one of the most challenging things that kids are going to have to deal with in their lives ongoing. Not just teaching your kids not to do dopey TikTok videos and going to keep them from getting a job in the future, or, sending very intimate, embarrassing videos or in pictures that can be shared. But you're talking about securing a financial institution. Everything is online, and everything is so very vulnerable these days.
Yeah, I've worked in actually, when I started in security, I was working in a healthcare company. So there's a different side, there working with healthcare and the sensitive data that exists there, and then moving over to the financial space where there's still what we call sensitive data in terms of account numbers and things like that, and personal information. But it's two wide different parts of the spectrum in terms of how we secure things. So yeah, there's that's one of the biggest complications with my role and with people that are my peers and in the security industry, is that we're constantly expanding where data is and where it goes and how it's used, and every place that data goes requires some level of protection, and that's makes our job harder. It gives us some job security, though, that's for sure. So there's been for several years now that there's been what they call negative employment with security, because there's so much demand for security professionals, but not enough people to fill that demand. So that's why, teaching at Temple and doing this education type of work that I do, I think helps alleviate some of that burden on the security teams as we try to make sure that security is everybody's responsibility.
Yeah, you mentioned healthcare and keeping information private. I have to tell you, or last year, whenever the Commonwealth of Massachusetts issued the vaccine passport, and I immediately signed up for it, and I scanned it, and I was expecting to see, okay, I got my 2 vaccines and my booster, but it also listed all these other vaccines that I had, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, why was this information being collected? I got one vaccine at a pharmacy, another vaccine somewhere else, one with my doctor. Who's talking about this stuff? And, and it wasn't a big deal. It's just a record of my vaccines. But I was really shocked and a little perturbed that what I thought was private really wasn't.
So a lot of times, the way that would work is that, when you go to your doctor's office, you may have a HIPAA form that you fill out, and, that's going to state that they're allowed to share that information within reason to covered entities and be able to provide that to potentially a healthcare exchange. And so that's where that information, goes, whether you were, I don't want to say aware of it or not, because I'm sure that it was in the fine print or it was in the, in what you signed. But, when you're at the doctor's office and they pass you 15 forms to sign, you're usually like, yeah, standard stuff, I'm going to sign it. In there somewhere, it most likely stated that it would share it with an exchange. So that information gets, pulled together from all the different places you go. In your case, the vaccinations that you've done. That gets uploaded to, a profile that you have. Now, the benefit there is that you can go to an exchange and look that up. But obviously, like I mentioned, more data getting, spread around. That means, that needs to be protected, right? So each of those places that you got the vaccine, they hold a record of it. And now they've shared that with another, entity that now has a copy of that. And so, that's it just propagates throughout the system. So
yeah, really wild. So we now have to add technology and how to be safe online on our phones. One of the things we don't realize is that when we give our kids, and we're giving our kids these little devices at an earlier and earlier age, what we're actually giving them, we're giving them two things. We're giving them a portal to the world, allowing them to access information and websites all over the world. But we're also giving them a door that's going to allow other people into their lives. And lots of those people aren't going to be friendly. They're going to be malevolent in some form. So we have to have that talk in addition to talking to our kids about drugs and alcohol and other things. Now we have to talk to our kids about staying safe online, and we have to have that conversation with our kids earlier and earlier and earlier. And I think a great way to do it is by reading together, reading a story like Alicia Connected, and so that we're not sitting down and having that talk that goes in one ear and out the other. We're actually talking about a character that our kids are going to love and connect with. And now it's, I'm not being lectured. We're having a conversation about a story.
Yep. Yeah. And that's, one of the things I like to do when it comes to, providing information about security is not make it a lecture. I, as I mentioned, I teach at Temple University. I try to keep it lighthearted. I try to keep it engaging and exciting because, to be honest, security is a dry topic. So, nobody likes to talk about the nuance of asymmetric encryption versus symmetric encryption. That gets into the weeds of security that that only us nerds, security nerds care about. But I think it's important for us to be able to put things into easily digestible concepts that are, that children can remember. I mean, we grew up with the whole stranger danger, avoid getting into, situations where you might put yourself at risk, physically, of whether it's, kidnapping and things like that we were concerned about with growing up, because back then you just went outside. I was telling my daughter this the other day. We went outside, and during the summertime, as soon as we got out of bed, we got dressed, we went outside, and we didn't come back in until, nighttime. And so there were different dangers and different risks, associated with that compared to the dangers and risks that children face today with technology. So I think, that gets into kind of, one of the things that, in fact, as I was teaching a class last night, and one of the things about security that a lot of us in the security industry do is what we call threat modeling. And we do that daily, just all of us do that daily without even thinking about it. When you get out of bed in the morning and you get dressed and you, if you're heading to an office or something like that, you do threat modeling and risk assessments as you're getting prepared for work and as you get in your car and as you're driving. We're constantly thinking about, what can go wrong. And maybe we're not thinking about it, consciously, but we are thinking about it subconsciously of, hey, I'm trying to preserve, my well-being, and therefore I'm going to take into consideration certain things in my environment to make sure that I'm staying safe. And so I think, those types of things that come across in the book that are not, it's not in the book. It doesn't say, okay, here's how, to do X, Y, Z, and it's very technical and this, that, and the other. It's more, in a conversation between Alicia and her parents and some of her friends and the interaction with, teachers and parents and adults. And it's more learning about those different things through, in some cases, some lessons. Some of the children in the book, learn lessons the hard way. And then there's opportunity too for Alicia's parents to kind of just nudge her in directions to say, hey, think about this. And so it's not a thick technical book on how to, be secure. It's done in a very hopefully compelling story.
Yeah. I've shared this, I think, on the podcast. When my kids were growing up, they're 26 and 29, so they were just kind of getting into technology when it was starting. And my very first website, I had somebody build it for me. It cost me one of my children, actually. And so for my educational magic show, we had a picture of me doing a magic trick with both of my kids, and they were babies at the time. It was very, very cute. But when they got to be 8, 9, 10 years old, and their friends knew what I was doing, and they were visiting my website, they're like, oh, you look so cute as a baby. And so my kids came to me and said, hey, can you get that picture off? And I learned how to build my website, and they did, and I got rid of it. And then when my kids were probably 12, 13, 14, I was just doing a Google search, trying to keep myself safe and searching my name, and this picture popped up on something called the Wayback Machine. And I brought my kids down, and I said, I don't have that picture anymore. I don't have the original. I don't have the digital file. It's not on this computer. In fact, I don't have the computer that I use to take that picture down. It doesn't exist here, but it still exists online. And for me, it was a very real way to show my kids that anything you put online stays there forever.
Yep.
It was a great lesson for them because as far as I know, they've been very safe in terms of what they post. They post very little online. Yeah. And so it was a great lesson for them. What other kind of things would be really important for us to talk to our kids, especially when we're first giving them technology, because they're getting younger and younger when they get their first phones?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to pick at there. So, I think it comes down to basically understanding that, the people that you're talking to online may not be them. Mm-hmm. It may not be who you think it is, right? And in fact, it's very timely. This morning, I posted a couple household items to sell online, and instantly was hit by 2 people that turned out to be scammers. And me being who I am, they got me 80% of the way there, to the point where funds were about to be transferred, and I was like, wait a minute, and it's the way that, and that's me. So I can see how, after I kind of walked away from that and replied back saying, hey, thanks for a lesson in scams. It's like, man, if I can fall for something like that, other people are easily, targeted for this stuff. So I think there's basic, I think principles that, that all of us, not just children, need to understand, is that the people that you're talking to online may not be who they say they are. So, always have a sense of, skepticism, when you are dealing with anybody online. I think you always want to remember, to your point about, the pictures, never share anything online that you wouldn't want everyone to see, because nothing is ever really private online. And there are some cases where you might be able to find ways to, do private, messaging and things like that. Anybody can take a screenshot. This is pretty common. somebody can take a screenshot and it's saved forever, and then they can upload it somewhere else. So, never share anything online or with somebody, virtually, that you wouldn't want everybody to see. And again, these are good advice for whether children or adults. You have to keep that stuff in consideration. And I think, to your point earlier that you mentioned, there's, especially with children, we're seeing kind of a lot of that play out today in maybe politics, where a lot of the younger politicians, there's things that, were posted online when they were younger that are starting to catch up to them. And I think you're going to see that, obviously it's what we call a leading indicator, meaning that, 10 years from now, you're going to see a larger population of people that in the public eye, whether they're politicians or other types of people that are in the public sphere, you're going to start seeing more of that. You're going to start seeing, because now your life is online. All of our lives are online. And that's a wealth of information for somebody that might want to, do you harm or might want to bring you down. So, all those things are good, starting advice for anybody getting, that information or getting a device or, getting online.
Yeah. I think about when I was growing up and we had the cassette tapes that you put the pin in to kind of roll things back. And I loved technology. And I think, wow, it would be so cool if I was in 8th grade and I had all this technology. And then I think, I'm really happy I didn't have this kind of technology when I was in 8th grade, because, boy, it would come back to haunt me.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think, there's I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, and it's, it does take a certain level of self-control, because there's times where, again, it's so ingrained. I'm sitting here in my office with multiple computers and devices, sitting around me, and, it's just, we're surrounded by it. So it becomes like second nature to do, whether you're sharing something online, or whether something happens, you want to, tell friends, and it becomes almost second nature for us just to be open and sharing. And I think, I remember growing up where my mom, she just, because, back then it was like Social Security numbers. You never want to tell anybody what your Social Security number is. And, you don't tell people where your address is. You don't give people your phone number and things like that. Like you grew up knowing that those things were, okay, these are top secret things that we don't share with anybody, only trusted people. And now it's like you share, what you had for breakfast this morning. You share, the type of shoes you're wearing and what you're doing with your dog today. And so I think, we share that to the world. Now, I mean, obviously not all of us are doing that, but, there's a lot of people out there that are putting that information out there. Yeah. And I think, when you look at what we call social engineering, where somebody that's what we would call a malicious actor, or somebody that's trying to to do something nefarious, they can look at your the stuff that you're putting online and build a profile about you, and they can understand everything about you, where you live, where your habits when you drive, what your dog's name is, what school you went to. And any of us that go to log into a site are probably familiar with the security questions that you get asked. And, some of those security questions are things like, what's your dog's name? What street, do you live on? Or things like that. And as you share that information online, that stuff becomes public, and somebody would be able to leverage that to basically build a profile and potentially get into an account that you may have. So, there's definitely dangers with sharing that type of information.
This brings to mind that we talk about how important it is to read with our kids and continue to read with our kids as they become older. I think that reading Alicia Connected with our kids would be a great reminder that all of us, not just our kids, we all have to stay vigilant. And, the scams are growing and they're changing. Now I get random text messages. Hey, are you there? I'll answer back the first time. You got the wrong person. Sorry. And, can we be friends?
Yep.
Nope.
Yeah.
We can't be friends. And so, these things are changing all the time. So it's important for us to continue our education as to how we can keep ourselves safe. And I think, sitting down, reading Alicia Connected, starting that conversation with our kids when they're younger, it's going to make the ongoing conversation so much easier. And when they get to be a little bit older and more wise, they can help their soon-to-be elderly parents keep from getting their bank accounts drained, because now the kids are going to be wiser about this stuff than we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's my hope. The book series doesn't have everything possible to learn or consider about, about privacy and safety online. But I'm hoping that, with children reading it and with their parents, reading it with them, that it at least it starts the conversation. Yeah. And that there's, at least a understanding of, hey, this stuff is real. There's a lot of concerns about this, and we need to be able to use technology in a responsible way.
Yeah, so very important. And we didn't even get into talking about just being responsible and helping our kids understand that they have to treat others with respect when they're online interacting with people.
Yep. And that's in the series too. So
yeah. Well, it sounds like we need to have you back on in the not too distant future to continue this conversation. Awesome.
Yeah, I would love to.
In the meantime, Derek, please tell everybody where they can go to find out more about you and find out more about Alicia Connected.
So you can go to aliciaconnected.com. You can also, if you're on LinkedIn or if you want to check me out there, that you can find out more about me from a professional point of view. There is a Alicia Connected Facebook page. And then, of course, you can buy the books on Amazon.com.
Awesome. We've had a great and really informative time speaking to the author of Alicia Connected, a really important middle grade novel from our guest, Derek Fisher. Hey, Derek, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, my pleasure, and thank you for having me on.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Doreen Berger. She'll be here to celebrate her middle grade novel. It's called The Captain's Daughter. Great science fiction fantasy book, and Doreen is a fantastic guest. Hey, if you haven't already, please connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids on Instagram, @readingwithyourkids on TikTok, @readingwithyourkids on Pinterest, @readingwithyourkids on YouTube, and on Twitter, it's @JedleyMagic. That's right, it's @JedleyMagic on Twitter. And we'd love to connect with you. And of course, we would love it if you could go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can sign up for our free newsletter. You can also let us know by hitting the contact button what we're doing great here on the podcast, what we could be doing better, and who you would like to hear on a future episode of the podcast. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Derek Fisher. Please be sure to check out Alicia Connected and start having conversations with your kids about their online activities. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Nicole Bell Castro, Mirabella Q. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.